I call the honourable member Ian Lees-Galloway.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair. Well, as we indicated on this side of the House during the debate on Part 1, Part 2 is a different matter, and we unfortunately cannot be as supportive as we were in Part 1. And I guess that reflects the fact that, as I think was stated during the second reading debate, that the amalgamation of public services for the sake of it is not necessarily a good thing. What matters is what is the outcome from that amalgamation. And whilst we could see merit in the amalgamation of ALAC and the Health Sponsorship Council, we cannot support the amalgamation of the Mental Health Commission, or essentially really the absorbing of the Mental Health Commission into the Health and Disability Commission, and the creation of a deputy commissioner within the Health and Disability Commission who is responsible for mental health. And I think if the government had listened closely to what the submitters said at Select Committee, they would have come to the same conclusion. The Mental Health Commission was originally established in response to the recommendations of the 1996 Ministerial Inquiry into Mental Health Services, most popularly known as the Mason Inquiry. And it was established really because there was a recognition that mental health services were not only underfunded and underprovided for, but did not get the recognition and the attention that they needed, and that was having a detrimental effect on our communities, and that people who suffered mental illness were not receiving the services that they ought. And whilst things have certainly improved in the years since then, and we've seen the establishment of the mental health blueprint, we've seen mental health funding ring-fenced, and we saw on a number of occasions the length of time for which the Mental Health Commission would remain established extended through ultimately to 2015 was the last extension that it received. It's fair to say, Mr Chair, that the job is far from done. And in fact, the replacement to the blueprint, the Blueprint 2, is currently being, I would imagine it's now in its pretty final drafting stages, and the expectation is that that will be published soon. And that seems, Mr Chair, to be the least appropriate time to disestablish the Mental Health Commission. Whilst one of the last things that it will do is to publish that second blueprint, it would be appropriate really for the Mental Health Commission to then see out its time through to 2015 and to use those first few years to get the second blueprint underway. If the people who and the organisations who submitted to that drafting process are actually listened to, there will be some not insignificant changes to the way we approach mental health services and to the way I suppose the way mental health services are shifted, not only from a focus on secondary care to a focus on primary care, but also an understanding that we need to focus on a much wider proportion of the population than what was mandated for in the first blueprint. And that amount of change and shift in focus really needs a dedicated organisation to navigate the sector through that period of change. And it seems extremely short-sighted to bring forward the disestablishment date for the Mental Health Commission from the 31st of August 2015 to the 30th of June 2012, and then leave it up to the Health and Disability Commission, which has not had that focus on mental health, and to a commissioner or a person who becomes a deputy commissioner subordinate to somebody else to be in charge of the navigation through that period of change. Just given that one of the principal concerns, if you talk to both consumers of mental health services and people practising in the area of mental health, and their belief, and I think quite reasonable belief, that mental health services remain the word has been used, Cinderella component, Mr Chair.
Ian Lees-Galloway.
Thank you, Mr Chair. A Cinderella component of the health system. I think it absolutely sends the wrong signal to be disestablishing the one organisation that was focused on mental health and folding that into another organisation and reducing that focus. Now, I notice that in its comments to the Select Committee, the Ministry noted the fact that the Mental Health Commission's longevity, or its existence, has been tenuous, and the fact that it's lasted as long as it has been the result of government successively extending its lifespan. And the comment was made that by shifting the monitoring and advocacy functions of the Mental Health Commission into the Health and Disability Commission, that secured those functions into the future. Now, I accept that that's probably true, but it is not necessary. We do not have to shift the functions of the Mental Health Commission into the Health and Disability Commission to give it that security. Parliament, the government, is quite capable of giving the Mental Health Commission that level of security and still retaining it as a standalone organisation. And so whilst it's true that the shifting of those responsibilities into another organisation does potentially create some security, it is not a necessary change in order to secure those functions. Now, there are no doubt some efficiencies to be gained in terms of transferring and reducing back office functions, but of course what we have seen across the state sector is when back office functions have been somehow rationalised or made, to use the government's terms, more efficient, what ultimately ends up happening is the people who are supposed to be delivering the frontline services end up having to pick up those back office services, and therefore frontline services actually suffer. So we on this side of the House are very, very sceptical of any arguments made that by reducing back office function, that somehow will allow the shift of resources to the front line. Because, I mean, whether you look at the police force, the defence force, all across the state sector, we have seen that what ultimately happens is a reduction in frontline services, and I think that is something that we have to be acutely aware of as well. A number of submitters said that shifting the Mental Health Commission into the Health and Disability Commission would make the organisation more reactive. I think that's true. The Health and Disability Commission is a very reactive organisation. It reacts essentially to when things go wrong in the health system, whereas the Mental Health Commission is a much more proactive organisation involved in the promotion of activities to promote and secure mental well-being. So again, a shift in focus, a shift in the nature of the organisation, which really is a retrograde step as far as securing and supporting mental health services in New Zealand is concerned. So, Mr Speaker, whilst superficially parts 1 and part 2 may appear similar in that they are about the amalgamation of organisations, the outcome from those amalgamations are quite different, and on this side of the House we cannot support the dissolving of the Mental Health Commission and the reduction of focus on services supporting those people with mental illness in our community.
Mr Chair.
I called Kanwaljit Singh Bakshi.
Thank you, Mr Chair. It's my pleasure to take a call on this part.